I decided to take my Shahada.
At 16,
At
mashallah.
16, yeah.
So how did your family react to that news that you had become Muslim?
I mean, the way my family reacted, like I said, because, I mean, I pretty much lived my life like I was an adult, they, I mean, they were happy for me. They didn't quite understand what it is I was doing.
But let me ask you, when they saw you after you become Muslim, did they notice that there was a positive change in you?
Definitely. I mean, to this day, you know, I think that my mother's proud, you know, and my father's proud. My family's genuinely happy for me, you know, even so much so that, you know, because the population of Muslims are growing in Seattle, my aunt, you know, who works in the public schools, who deals with a lot of Muslims, she'll come to me and she'll say, you know, what is halal food? Or, you know, I noticed that, you know, these kids, they're fasting, they won't eat. And I try to make them eat, but they won't eat. Or if my family see Muslims not acting like Muslims, they'll say, well, you know, my nephew is Muslim. You know, my mother said my grandchildren, they're Muslim, and they don't act like this, you know.
Right.
So, I mean, definitely they've seen a positive change.
Now, where did you go to school? I mean, did you actually go to university there in Seattle?
I went to, it's called Evergreen State College. It's a liberal arts college in Olympia, Washington. Yeah, I went there. And basically, you know, my journey through education was, you know, I'm pretty much self-educated, you know. And so it was through my wanting to learn, you know, because when I was in elementary and junior high, I didn't do good in school. You know, I was always fighting, getting in trouble. I always had like a track record. So anywhere I went, you know, my name and behavior would follow me. And so I didn't really, you know, I wasn't really concerned much with school. But again, you know, when I became Muslim, I mean, it was like an awakening. So it motivated me to learn. So I went from being, you know, I guess an E student to becoming, you know.
You said an E student?
Yeah, like, you know, bad grades basically, you know,
Yeah,
to getting, you know, straight A's, you know, and Allah is my witness. And it was just my motivation of being Muslim, that encouragement and that, you know, the seeking knowledge, you know. So as a result, I was able to graduate on time, you know, because I became Muslim in my junior year. And so, I mean, it just, you know, changed my perspective on education. And so what I realized once I graduated, that, you know, I had to work extra hard to catch up. But, you know, I always had a love for learning, you know, since I become Muslim. So I was always reading. And so what I realized is that, you know, I needed to connect, you know, my life experience, you know, with, I guess you would say, traditional, you know, institutionalized learning. So then you know, I put myself through school. So first I went to community college, you know, and I mean, it was all on my own, you know. It wasn't like my parents said, oh, you need to go to school. I mean, I realized that, you know, I need to educate myself. So I went to community college and, you know, finished there, and then eventually I went to Evergreen State College, which is, you know, a liberal arts college in Washington, in Olympia.
And your degree from there, what did you graduate with?
Well, I got a degree in liberal arts, but the way the programs are tailored, whatever field of work that you want to go into, you pick the subjects that relate to that. So if you want to do social work, you know, they give you courses in social work, or if you want to do go into education, you can combine courses that, you know, relate to social work and education. And so, you know, I kind of did both, you know.
So now you told me that you did go into social work. What motivated you to pick that field, and what did it tell you about the social fabric of the society?
Well, you know, I think what motivated me to go in that field was just, you know, my own life experience. And this is something that, you know, in fact, I talked to my wife about that. You know, I think when you struggle through life and you overcome your struggles, I think it makes you more compassionate and understanding of other people, because you understand what you had to go through and the work that it takes for you to get where you're at today. And so I think that was the thing that motivated me. And the way it started out was, you know, basically I said that I wanted to be a drug and alcohol counselor. Now this was, you know, when I first started community college. So I started volunteering. And I volunteered with a mental health program. I had no knowledge of, you know, mental health issues or whatever. So I volunteered at this halfway house. And, you know, I recall going in, being naive, not knowing anything. I would talk to the residents there. And, you know, I would ask questions, and sometimes the people would act very strange, you know. And so then that's when I began to learn about, like, you know, schizophrenia, you know, manic depression and all those type of things, you know. And so finally, as I got the experience, it kind of worked in my favor because I was able to apply for other jobs. So then I went to other, you know, halfway houses or places where people were suffering from mental illness. And, you know, what I found is that, you know, a lot of times, you know, people who, I don't know, are suffering from, you know, mental health issues or, you know, what have you, I mean, a lot of times they're stereotyped, you know, or, you know, people don't understand the causes of, you know, their problems. And what I found, you had, you know, sometimes you had Vietnam veterans, you know, as a result of being in war, it affected their mental faculties. There were some people who just lived a wild life, that they did too many drugs, and it, you know, made their brain deteriorate. There were other people who, very educated people, you know. I remember there was one guy, his whole family were doctors. And the way I found this out was, you know, I was reading some information about a particular local hospital, and there was a doctor with the same name as this gentleman that was in the halfway house. And he said, oh, you know, that's my sister. You know, my father's a doctor, and he wanted me to be a doctor. Well, this guy had a nervous breakdown, and he has severe schizophrenia. So it's not like, you know, these people are, you know, just crazy like people like to think. But, you know, they have different issues. But
let me ask you, I mean, being a Muslim and having some Islamic grounding, did you find that that better prepared you to maybe approach your social work in a different manner?
Definitely. I mean, it allowed me to listen to people, you know. I mean, I think I didn't judge people, you know. I mean, for example, before working at the school that I work at now, I work with juveniles coming out of institutions, you know, trying to get back into society. So you had children that were, you know, abused, you know, children who have committed, you know, serious crimes. And one of the things I always kept in mind in dealing with them was, you know, orphans and what the Prophet ﷺ has said about orphans. And so I always dealt with those children from that standpoint that, you know, be careful of being harsh on the orphans because there's punishment, you know. And so when I dealt with them, I always tried to deal with them, you know, with some understanding and some compassion. And I think eventually, you know, I was able to deal with, you know, some of the worst kids and learn their signs and patterns and see when they were going to escalate. And I was able to handle the situation where maybe, you know, my coworkers who didn't come from a certain perspective, I mean, you know, maybe they would get very upset or would say, oh, this kid is being manipulative, you know. So, I mean, definitely being Muslim has helped me to deal with.
And the people you worked with and dealt with, they knew you were a Muslim?
Oh, yeah.
And knowing that they knew that you were Muslim, did they ask you any questions about Islam? And was Islam able to help some of them get their life together?
Well, I mean, whenever I do a job, I always